Number 2, as Thresh is instantly banned away by Counterlogic Gaming. Team EnVy going to take Zac off the table as well. Now, one thing I want to bring up before we get any further into this draft is you saw Team EnVy ban Aurelion Sol away first ban last game. And I'm wondering if they're going to ban him away in the first ban phase again, or if they're going to leave it open, since a lot of the time CLG won't pick it until one of their last picks anyway.
Yeah, to me, the Aurelion Sol conundrum here for teams playing against CLG has to depend a lot on what are their side lanes actually going to be drafting as well. Because Aurelion Sol, biggest strength, roaming around to side lane. So if my bottom lane, if I'm planning on picking, Kalista and Thresh or something, that I feel pretty confident, in their disengage, they're pretty safe, they can rely on each other to save, or something defensive, then I'm not as worried about the Aurelion Sol, and you could think about leaving it up. It's not like a permaban all cases versus the enemy team. But Kalista will not be there. CLG gonna first pick it. Not really a surprise.
Nope.
And we've seen everybody just in love with this champion right now. Gets off to such an early power spike.
Even though the win percent is not very good in North American LCS at this point in time, only 36.6% over the course of 41 games, it's still been a very highly contested pick. We saw it banned last game. This time it managed to make it through because there was different priority. EnVy saying, you know what, Elise didn't work out the first game, but that was a fluke. The level 1 went bad. That one doesn't count. Now's the real one.
LirA running it back here. Elise part 2. See how he can start it off. This time they are on red side, so it'll be a little bit easier as far as the level 1 and having to worry about those invades. Also going to deal a little bit of a steal here, it looks like. I think Apollo will lock it in. There we go. Yep. He's also a fan of the Tristana currently. Also, the reason is that he's against Kalista. Everybody loves Tristana into Kalista.
Yep.
You're able to get a little bit quicker of a trade with your explosive shot than Kalista is early on. That being said, it has not scared anyone off of the first pick priority of Kalista, even if Tristana is there and ready for that soft-ish, lane counter pick.
Well, Omar had a good game on Gragas in game number 1. He had some nice flash body slams and some good casks, and he's going to be reprising that role here in game number 2. Huhi stealing that Taliyah away for himself in the first round yet again. He had nice walls in game number 1, really doing a good job to allow CLG to make sure they could get those objectives whenever it was convenient for them. He'll be doing it again now as Nisqy gets the often banned LeBlanc under his control.
Yeah, this is Nisqy's first time this split of actually getting his hands on that LeBlanc. A lot of mid laners actually haven't been able to get their hands on it this split, but we'll see what he's able to pull off here. It definitely is a champion. We talked about assassins, Captain Flowers. This is an assassin, yes, even though it is ranged. Blanc definitely likes to get in there. We'll see if they can set up ganks onto Taliyah, because that is one of the best combos. LeBlanc and Elise. It's absolutely terrifying, for a mid laner, because LeBlanc can set up ganks so well, and Elise doesn't even need setup half the time.
Right. You just throw your cocoon out. If it hits, you kill the guy, but there's not really an if they're already locked down by the LeBlanc chains. Huge kill pressure there, as supports are the bans for Team EnVy, taking Rakan and Blitzcrank off the table. Kalista Rakan, the Rakambo, was originally one of the reasons that Kalista kind of came back. We saw her played with that champion in LCK, I believe is where it originated, as a lot of things in League of Legends do. And everybody else said, whoa, that's really OP. And they started copying it.
Whenever you see Kalista, you're like, all right, things like Thresh, things like Blitzcrank, things like Rakan, oh, they're all banned out. Well, there are still more. Braum is also very good with it. It's just, people, when you're looking to theorycraft things with Kalista, there are so many supports right now that have good crowd control that there's a long list that work well. Oh, there's another one off the list, actually. They picked up LeBlanc too. So they're denying as many of those playmaking supports to add on to the Kalista as they can. And instead, it looks like CLG might go a little bit more defensive here with the Lulu to give it a different look, since so many of the offensive ones were taken off the list.
Lulu was banned last game by Team EnVy after they locked in
the bait.
But CLG, nope. They're saying, look, Morgana worked out well for us last time. The binding secured kills. The black shields kept our AD carry alive. Kalista's an AD carry that as long as she doesn't get hit with some hard CC, she can just jump all over the place and kite everyone to death.
And so lifesteal like a madman. If you're able to get that CC immunity from your black shield, and especially if there's an Ardent Sensor, which Aphromoo, has been rushing, then it actually means that Kalista is so ridiculously difficult to kill you have to burst her down. Your LeBlanc, your Elise, they have to actually just combine to, focus fire that Kalista, and it becomes difficult in a 5v5 scenario. We'll see if EnVy can pull it off. They definitely have a lot of early game moves, or early game tools, and we'll see if they're able to put them to use.
They also now have the insta-give Cho'Gath.
There you go, flash on Kalista and deal 2,000 true damage. There you go.
Can't kite that.
Can't heal that up
Can't
either.
jump away from that one. But it does take a while for Cho'Gath to get to the point where he does that hilariously goofy damage. At the start, he's still vulnerable to ganks. Remember, especially when you've got Gragas and Jarvan and these two with plenty of ganking power, CC, lockdown potential, Seraph's going to have to make sure he's careful. Because last game, not really by a lot of fault of his own, but as much so LirA's as anyone, he ended up in a really rough spot. He couldn't deal with Darshan at all. This time, Darshan's on the champion Seraph was playing in game number 1. So Darshan's looking to say, look, I know you played the Jarvan against me. Let me show you how it's done.
Yeah, it's definitely a frustrating scenario for Seraph in the last game. It's like, please stop ganking my lane.
Just don't gank. Go somewhere else.
Either way, definitely was hot water for him and trouble for him to work himself out of. Let's see if they can do it, though. Team EnVy still have a chance. Best of 3 series here. We'll see if they can actually push it to game number 3. CLG looking to end it quickly, though, if game 1 was any indication.
I mean, that was honestly so impressive from CLG, winning the game at 26 minutes and just never stopping after that level 1 advantage they got for themselves. And yeah, you could attribute that to EnVy also trying to make really aggro plays to get themselves back in, LirA specifically going for the dives topside, but CLG still just never had a lapse in that momentum. I guess maybe that big Fiesta 4-for-4 in the bottom could have been called a lapse because it wasn't pure CLG mojo working. EnVy also found their own successes there, but EnVy's really going to have to make sure they don't let CLG run away with this game early like they did last time. Remember that EnVy as a team historically has been strongest in the early game.
Definitely should be true here with an Elise LeBlanc combo, but CLG will probably be expecting that. Maybe Huhi plays a bit more defensively, and they try and ward around mid lane. Definitely, I'm going to still keep my eyes on Omar as well. They touched on it a little bit on the analyst desk, but some games...
Fool me once.
Hakuho has seen this trick before. They touched on a little bit that, sometimes we're used to seeing a lot of early game influence from these junglers, right? And Gragas is definitely one of those champions that can have that. Definitely potent ganks as far as body slam flashes even early on, but we'll see if Omar gets more offensive. Last game he did a very good job of just being that consistent, getting some vision, holding onto his ultimate until absolutely necessary, and creating those plays for the team. But LirA's angry. See what he gets out.
This is going to be an interesting test for Team EnVy as well, seeing if they can manage to rally after such a convincing defeat in game number 1, get themselves back on track, especially LirA, who did seem to be a bit tilted.
Well, LirA started out with that ward kill, so that is actually going to help a lot. Huhi cancels it out, though, by stealing away 2 of the small raptors, not just 1, and the Taliyah definitely puts a stop to that extra experience advantage that LirA would have had by killing the ward, which can allow you to do things even without an experienced Quint, like 2-minute, 30-second ganks.
It hurts so much to lose 2 of those baby chickens because then you don't even hit level 2 off of your raptor camp. LirA had to go up, kill the tiny Krug in order to grab his level 2.
Yeah, with the bonus there of the ward as well, not too bad. He does do the thing where as well you just kill the small Krug and the big Krug and don't kill any of the ones that pop out, so you don't waste any extra time up there, because especially on the first clear there's not a lot of extra experience in there, so he kind of rights the ship very quickly and moves back down to the red. So LirA is actually not hurting too much from that early steal from Huhi. It does allow Huhi as well himself in lane to hit level 2 one minion earlier, or I mean 1 wave earlier, and he was able to use that to continually push Nisqy in, which Taliyah should be able to do anyway.
Aggressive mid lane summoner spell from Huhi too, going for the ignite this game to make sure that he can just put the damage down on whoever he gets himself on top of. Nisqy forced to jump back before he gets the second part of the chain to proc off and get the stun onto Huhi there. Also want to point out the difference between the supports. Again, this game, you're going to see the Relic Shield line from Hakuho, while Aphromoo goes for that ever so powerful coin line that, with its recent buff, just provides so much economy for support players.
Yeah, everybody's pretty hyped up on the gold that you can get from the coin. And no surprise, really, that the Braum's going with the Jarvan for the shield, but Seraph actually, when he went in for that invade, did not drop a ward or pop the plants here with the Scrying Orb. So Omar still has the Scrying Plant as well as the Blast Cone to use if he wants to go punish Seraph. And Darshan has this wave frozen right in front of his turret. This is actually a pretty rough spot for Seraph once again, since LirA's on the bottom side of the map. Since he is on the bottom side of the map, though, he might be able to kill Aphro.
TP coming in, too. It looks like Aphromoo in some serious trouble here. Cocoon comes out, only finds its way onto the black shield. Nisqy wants to get that extra CC down at a Stixxay, and they get the first blood. Hakuho bound up, though. This is gonna be a 1-for-1. No, not quite. Apollo with the heal, keeping his support alive.
Big roam down bottom, and the LeBlanc Elise combo doesn't actually take effect in mid lane. They're able to make the double roam down to bottom side and cut the legs out from the bottom lane of CLG. Stixxay burns both summoners, Aphromoo burns both summoners, and EnVy get that first blood.
The level 4 TP play from Nisqy finds success. Aphromoo's binding doesn't do the same, not able to stop that back in time, but good start for Team EnVy, really making sure that they're the ones with that early lead compared to last game.
This is why Aphromoo keeps talking about how he hates playing against LirA. This guy is just... Oh, maybe we'll play a flash.
Flashing away from the shove. Huhi getting the better of Nisqy here so far.
All right, well, that is another summoner blown here for Nisqy on the LeBlanc. It's not so detrimental for the LeBlanc because you can play and hold on to your distortion rather than, you know, going super aggressive. But real big story here is LirA off to the more expected starts for him, you know, that we see. He's able to right the ship, even though a couple Raptors get stolen, no problem. You know, he had that ward kill for extra experience, goes up, gets the Krugs to right his ship, and ganks bottom very early on.
And you saw the stat that popped up on the right side of the screen there. LirA actually the second highest first blood kills or assists put together in all of North American LCS so far in Summer. So this guy is no stranger to making sure he's a part of that first big play on the map.
And he did walk over a ward to get into the jungle here. So CLG, now that the Scrying Plant was also blown, definitely know that he is on the Raptors.
He tries to take one, but the Spider Bite not quite enough damage to do so. Instead, Omar just gets to farm up his own camp. LirA will not get any revenge for the chickens that were stolen away from him earlier. He'll have to wait till later to potentially do that, as Apollo and Hakuho feeling good about themselves in this bottom lane after getting that kill onto Stixxay. Just assist for themselves, but still a slight CS advantage for these two.
LirA trying to be annoying and continually protect the vision that he set up here in the red quadrant. They have a lot of control over Omar.
Omar eats the cocoon and one little bit of that neurotoxin, but now Nisqy sidestepping the seismic shove. Huhi's at half HP. They got to be careful about taking this 2-on-2. LirA also injured here. Bottom lane's thinking about maybe roaming up to that as the action fades away. Huhi healing up with the potions. Nisqy will be doing the same. LirA goes back into his own jungle to keep on farming.
Meanwhile, on the top side, Darshan is pushing Seraph in right now, so he's got some time to roam around. There's a decent amount of vision here in EnVy's jungle, so they see him coming, but this is very similar to what he did last game on the Camille. Trying to get a gank onto the mid lane, you know, it is a LeBlanc, so even though the flash is blown, it's very difficult to actually pull that off.
So hard to actually get the gank onto LeBlanc. LirA hanging around too, just in case they try something super cheeky. There comes Omar, there comes the flag and drag, there comes the wombo combo, the cataclysm down. Nisqy getting himself away, but the spider has been squished. Omar's got to be careful for himself here, though. Doesn't want to put himself in feast range, but Seraph had used the feast previously just to get himself some stacks, so no danger.
That was a case of EnVy saw Darshan roam down, so they were trying to counter him, but they didn't see Omar.
Not going all the way in for Nisqy here. Recognizing he can go back on the distortion, but the ignite is enough from Huhi. Instead, though, they will trade the kill as opposed to having a clean one. Seraph hangs around long enough to get himself some money.
Bunch of flashes blown there.
Yeah, this is kind of, that was a little messy on everybody's part.
It's kind of like what you talked about. It reminds you of the you know, skirmish, we'll call it. Last game, that was down bottom side.
Skirmish?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was something down bottom last game. But Stixxay and Aphromoo level 5, their opponents level 6 on Apollo. So be looking out for that one. Here's a replay.
All right, so this is actually part 2 after they, you know, already had the successful dive and were able to kill off Seraph. Huhi flashes in. He's already got Nisqy's kill, basically, there with the Ignite, but he flashed in, so Seraph's easily able to answer the kill, and they get 1-for-1 on the mid laners.
That helped bring Seraph back into a closer contest with Darshan as well, because you saw before the top laners rotated down, Darshan had like 55 to 39 CS or something like that, and he had better items. There's just a Glacial Shroud for Seraph, which isn't very scary of an item on its own, but Seraph now with the Ninja Tabbies, a lot tankier, a lot harder to kill. Darshan only with Braum boots, means he won't be able to keep up as easily with that big stompy monster.
Gotta keep up, need some boots. Nisqy goes pretty aggressive on Huhi, waits for the passive, gets the extra proc there. Blue buff on him as well. LeBlanc, at this stage, when you have the extra auto attack damage you can get from your Hextech Revolver, helps out a lot in those types of trades that we just saw there with a distortion in. And able to get a little bit of mid lane control here. Blue buff actually goes over to Omar instead. Didn't quite catch the end of that one, but they definitely messed up that handoff.
Yeah, that's not really where you want the blue buff for the Gragas as opposed to the Taliyah, but that's kind of the hand they've been dealt now as Seraph moves down into the river to clear out the enemy control ward. Omargod hanging around, but doesn't want to make any kind of a play onto that one this time. LirA still level 6 compared to Omar's 7, so slightly behind in terms of jungle leveling, clearing out a control ward on his own. Not quite up to Runic Echoes either. You can say the same about Omargod working towards that Cinder Hulk, and that's one of the changes we've seen with Gragas since the Cinder Hulk buffs. He gets to go for that item first. He gets to be tankier quicker, which is very, very nice for him, so he can get into those team fights, be on that front line, and soak damage for the team. Which, honestly, CLG needs him to be that front line. Darshan also going to be right there with him, but keeping Stixxay and Huhi alive so they can do that consistent damage throughout the course of the fight. That's how they win against these bursty style champions like the Cho'Gath, like the Elise, and like the LeBlanc.
Yep, Seraph you can see there as well, uses the feast on Cannon Minion. He wants to start getting up to his 6 stacks, which you can get off, you know, whatever you want early on. Those are the kind of freebies to get your extra health. And then, bottom lane play.
All right, Stixxay going for it. Tossing Aphromoo in there, a nice binding. Omar shows up here too, needs a little bit more damage. Hakuho goes down and Stixxay takes the kill.
They combo very nicely. We get to see the Morgana.
Oh! Ooh, flash for flash there, Aphromoo.
Goes for the point blank binding. Apollo does have his summoners available, but he had to use both of them. CLG bottom lane definitely taking control back for themselves, and whenever a Kalista lane gets control of bottom lane, that also means Dragon is going to be difficult for the enemy team to contest. And rotate up nicely to that one. They're going to push down the turret first, who he can roam over. Omar's already there, and CLG, just like last game, get the kills, but instantly trying to pressure objectives afterwards. That's 50% of the turret. LirA comes down, trying to defend.
Will hold the line for now. Apollo blowing up those minions with the explosive charge passive. Being able to clear them out in time means that CLG can't secure that objective. Huhi eating some quick bursty damage from Nisqy there mid lane like you were talking about with that Hextech Revolver. It'll only get scarier as that turns into the fully built Gunblade, but bringing up the thing about Kalista and how she controls the dragons, this game actually has both the better than Smite champions on opposite teams. So I'm interested in seeing how those two are going to work together, or work against each other, I should say, in making these neutral objective contests for Baron and for Dragon that much more entertaining.
If I had to choose between the two, I would still take the Kalista over the Cho'Gath, because Cho'Gath, Omar decided he didn't want any more of that. 2v2 down bottom side, though.
Aphromoo's seriously in some trouble here. Black Shield popped to keep the stun away from him. Now Stixxay's got to kite away from Hakuho here, putting some more spears into him. The Black Shield already down, but it doesn't matter. The binding into the Rend, enough to take him down all the way. Darshan coming in, trying to finish LirA off, but now he's going to be CC'd as all of EnVy comes in. The cavalry has arrived. Darshan in retreat. Huhi makes his way into the fight with the wall. Omargod now also on the front for CLG, trying to tank up here, getting away from the chain second proc. CLG wants turret first blood, and it looks like they'll have no problem getting it. Seraph hanging around a little bit too long, has to flash away, but the binding still finds him. Omargod will be tanking up for Nisqy, makes his way into all of CLG and gets immediately smacked down. Now Seraph trying to get onto Stixxay, gets the shutdown with the feast. Omar barely walking away as Apollo wants to clean up some more kills here. He could go right to reset City, but LirA goes too close and goes down instead.
Oh, and Apollo down!
Apollo, the Black Shield, a little bit more damage coming in. The Rupture will not find the knockup onto Darshan because of Black Shield. These guys are dancing with death, trying to go back in and get greedy for these kills.
Incredibly close there, low health members. Everybody's blinking on the way out, but the turret first, turret bonus goal did again go over to CLG. Here's previously to this scenario though, the setup to it was Omar, no ultimate going to be available on the Gragas when they finally do get down to the bottom lane. They almost were able to take down Aphromoo here so early, but look at how many spears are in Hakuho, and he just gets rended down before all three teleports simultaneously come in, and they're able to turn around a lot of damage here initially onto Darshan.
And then the Weaver's Wall to bring Huhi into the fight. Why not?
Huhi joins, and we go on for another minute here in the bottom side. We're wondering a little bit at this point why Seraph was sticking around with the rest of the team backing off and the turret about to go down, but he does have his flash, and he flashes out of that second engage.
As yet another fight breaks out, this time in the Envy jungle. Aphromoo not afraid to press up into these guys' territory and try to get some of that vision down, try to build more advantages for his team. Omar and Stixxay on to the Mountain Drake, the first elemental Drake this game. And there's all those spears that you were talking about with Kalista's objective control. Means there is no problem taking that down.
Yeah, just for good measure, he gets it down to about 1100. Pulls out the Rend, easy secure there. You can get a little bit more in there. Plenty of visions for CLG creeping through into the blue quadrant for them as well, though. And it's a similar setup to last game where they gain their little pocket control here. First turret bonus goal. Drake comes shortly after. Now the vision starts to seep into the NV jungle, and every new move that NV make here is going to be a little bit easier for CLG to predict.
Blade of the Ruined King also done for Stixxay. Wanted to point that one out, as you know that Seraph's going to be stacking a lot of HP on the Cho'Gath, but now he's finding himself caught out in the river. Darshan pops the Cataclysm just to keep him there. Huhi bringing in some more damage. Aphromoo with the binding. Omar's here, brings Stixxay to hell. Why not the whole team? Bring that monster down.
All right, let's see what they do afterwards, though, because typically it's been, the 5-man try and push down mid-turret, but they're actually fanning out to go attend to minion waves first. They send Darshan up top. Actually, nobody goes down to deal with the bottom side, so NV are going to be able to trade bottom turret, but CLG are going to open up the mid lane.
CLG, again, they find the kill, they find the objective, they've got the momentum, they've got the tempo, and now they're going to get that tier 2. They've got 4 here.
Yeah, and NV have a bit of a flank, but Seraph doesn't have his teleport, so even though he's reviving shortly, he can't join either, and it means that CLG are going to be able to take 2 turrets for this one, in addition to Darshan on the top side.
Ooh, that was
that one.
A massive objective swing for CLG. 3 for 1 in turrets overall there. 7 to 3 in kills, and they're still up 4,000 gold compared to Envy. Envy's just having such a hard time responding on a macro level to these guys. CLG just always seem to be 1 or 2 steps ahead.
And now with so many of their turrets down, it's just very easy for CLG to transition between lanes here. Every rotation for Envy gets a little bit more dangerous. They have to walk through CLG vision to even get out halfway onto the map. And Omargod does find LirA going for his own red.
LirA being LirA. Trying to win through the jungle, counter jungle the opponent, find him, mess him up a little bit, but doesn't want to stick around any longer. Recognizes CLG's far enough ahead, and Omar's probably got backup, so he's not willing to throw his own life away for that red buff. Items are starting to come online too. You've got that Gunblade for the LeBlanc all the way done. You just saw her purchase her Sorcerer's Shoes there. Cho'Gath closing in on that Righteous Glory to help him get into the fights and get on those valuable targets like Stixxay. Because we know that Kalista, like we saw in the fight bottom lane, if she actually gets near that Cho'Gath, she becomes Cho'Gath food pretty quick. So with Righteous Glory being able to enable that, that could be one win condition in these fights for Envy. They also have the win condition of let Trist scale. That one's still going to be about a half hour away from us, but if it does happen, Envy can always fall back on that one. CLG, though, if they play like they are right now and like they did in game number 1, are not going to give Envy that time.
Yeah, and even though they have the Tristana, there are a lot of obstacles here for EnVy to overcome because, as you said, not only is it going to be a long time, but CLG have some scaling of their own. And currently, Darshan's found Seraph.
Darshan just will not let Seraph get away from this one. Weaver's Wall comes in. It's going to be a full-on 2v2, though, as Nisqy makes sure he shows up at the TP. Darshan now the one in the most trouble. Seraph turning the damage right back onto Huhi as Aphro grabs a kill onto LirA. Another fight breaking out there in the jungle. Darshan dies to Seraph, but Hakuho now has to retreat from Stixxay, who nearly finds himself another kill, barely missing out thanks to the heal as they rotate in. Aphromoo with a bit of a strange flash there, but doesn't find the mark.
That's a question mark ping.
Yep.
I'm a firm believer in taking control of the question mark ping flame. I immediately will question mark ping myself when I do something like that.
Yep.
So then it doesn't hurt so much when the rest of the team does, right?
Yeah, if you know you're going to be getting 20 of them from everybody else on the team, as long as you were the first and you say, oh yeah, they're just agreeing with me.
Yep.
They're not flaming me. We're working together. This teamwork.
Ha ha ha, funny, right guys? All right. Let's take another look here though, because CLG, the 3-man squad, was able to get that first kill onto LirA. It's Omar flashing in, and they stun lock him from 100 to 0. Meanwhile, we get the large zoom out here to see the Huhi map traveling. This is where Darshan does get the early start on his Seraph, but you can see Cho'Gath has so much base effectiveness there with all the health coming from his ultimate stacks and his Righteous Glory that's enough to true shot Darshan there right through the extra damage with Huhi, and they 2v1 while the 3-man squad actually got caught out.
And you could tell he had clicked his feast onto Darshan before he flag and dragged back into the fight, because as he knocks Seraph up into the air, he gets numbed. And so even though he gets the knock up, he still gets taken down first in the fight, causing Huhi to have to retreat. With a lead at 20, CLG is 18-2 in Summer, and EnVy is 2-15 with a deficit at 20. So if you ask the stats, Kobe, this one's looking pretty good for CLG.
Well, let's ask the top lane here, because Stixxay and Aphromoo got 5 members of EnVy coming for their heads.
Stixxay not afraid to just stand and fight, gonna be knocked up into the air, and Seraph with the flash into the ulti gets the kill, but Nisqy drops 2. CLG now in retreat. Seraph is very tanky and continues the charge forward. Silence onto Omargod. One more hit to proc the winner's bike. Gonna stun him up. Righteous Glory also slowing him down. Huhi trying to kite, but it's a 2-for-1 for EnVy.
Cho'Gath, baby. Righteous Glory. He's so sticky. You get the extra slow on your Vapor Whirl spikes as well. The AoE silence, just a tremendous amount of presence there from the Cho'Gath in the middle of that one. And EnVy, they take the initiative. Yes, they are behind. Yes, it's a bit rough for them, but Nisqy on the control ward calls for the extra teleport from Seraph. They catch out the bottom lane first, and even though Stixxay, as you said, puts out a lot of damage here, and Nisqy does flash the last spear there, but Ignite is already on Aphromoo. So they did trade 1 kill back, even though the bottom lane got caught. Then, though, it's all the Seraph game. He chases him down, gets the slows, gets the stun from the Braum passive, and able to finish him off with his auto attack as well. A little bit of a grasp proc there to get an extra bonus damage on the jump away.
Bonus regen now going the way of CLG though, as they grab themselves Ocean Drake #1, their second elemental of the game. Apollo with free firing time on the top lane tier 1 means he gets that for his team, takes him up to 2 total turrets. They're only down 2,000 gold. I mean, this isn't a death sentence for EnVy. They're doing just fine with how they have the scaling AD carry and the burst potential from the rest of the team. And Seraph is just a huge threat.
He definitely is. He lands the Rupture here, but now is a bit 1v3.
Nope, Darshan gets hit by the chains though, slows him down enough to get away for EnVy. Trying to make sure that they don't overcommit to anything now. They've done well keeping themselves in the game, not allowing CLG to run away with it.
This is a 5-kill Cho'Gath, by the way, with Seraph here getting quite big. And remember what we talked about earlier, where you can get 6 stacks off of, whatever you want, minions or whatever for your ultimate. But after that, you have to kill champions, you have to kill epic monsters, and he actually, since he's getting these last hits with it, he's got 2 extra stacks, up to 8 already, which is a pretty decent pace for Cho'Gath and getting extremely tanky. Again, it does so much for your team fight. Yeah, you do have a Tristana that's scaling up, and it's nice to have DPS from the back line, but once you have that large tank on the front line, that's really where it all comes together. Try and buy some space for the Tristana to actually keep DPS uptime. and work out. Nisqy, though, 1v3.
Stixxay is just not afraid of this LeBlanc at all. Normally you think of LeBlanc as an AD carry killer, but today the AD carry's turning the tables. Revenge for all the AD carries out there that have been insta-gibbed by her in side lanes, just trying to farm and have a good time, but Stixxay's not putting up with any of that today. 10-6, and Stixxay's got 4 of them for CLG.
Envy do get the answer of mid lane turret for themselves, so they keep that gold pretty close. CLG do pop the Rift Herald here, and they've got a man advantage. See if they can actually use this Rift Herald pressure to get anything, though.
There are pings out onto Baron. They're just throwing Rift Herald out as a sacrificial lamb, or crab, or whatever Shelly is. Now they go for the Baron.
Timer was running out, but they do use it as a distraction. Aphromoo trying to buy some time, and Huhi walls off Team Envy. That might be enough to secure it.
I love this use of the ulti from Taliyah to block away the objectives from the enemy team. They secure it for themselves, and now LirA's in some trouble. The stun comes out, the damage comes through, and the wombo combo alley-oop to take down the enemy team. LirA and Seraph both out of the picture.
Oh my goodness, CLG, is Huhi even done yet? He's chasing down Hakuho here. Whoa, okay, gets stunned up.
All right, he's a little bit far forward, but instead it's Apollo who gets punished. The flash from Darshan with the Tiamat active for the final hit.
That's definitely going to be a push on mid lane then. They just got 2 extra kills off of the back of that one. It's going to be an inhibitor.
That's what you do, Kobe. You get Baron, you kill 3 guys, you run her down mid, and you grab yourself the inhib. This is a game now blown wide open for CLG. It was so close. Envy looked like they were doing such a good job holding on, but the call to get Baron from CLG, the wall from Huhi, it all worked together.
Team fighting right here with the LeBlanc and the Elise, a little bit more difficult. Really nice pickoffs from CLG to get this, right? As you said, the distraction here with the Rift Herald down mid lane, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a big issue because, oh, you know, they can't really burn through Baron that fast. Yeah, they have a mountain, but oh no, now the delay of the Taliyah wall comes in, cuts them off. This Taliyah wall buys time for them to burn through the second half of Baron. They needed every second of it because right when they arrive here, Baron is finished up, Darshan goes over, alley-oop from Omar, and they're able to get the dunk. Count it, 2 points there as they get 2 more kills and chase off Envy.
Now with that free pressure in mid lane and everybody nice and Baroned up, ooh, CLG's got all sorts of opportunities here in the side lanes to take down those remaining tier 2s, get themselves an even bigger gold lead, and try to lock this game away. Granted, it will not be as fast as game number 1 because at this point in game number 1, 3 inhibs were down. So Envy is doing better than them, but they've still got quite a lot of work to do if they want to regain that footing and find themselves a chance to fight back. 2.5 items completed onto Apollo, so almost at that core 3-item spike for Tristana, but when you're staring down the barrel of an enemy team that's this strong, you're probably going to need even more.
Yep, and here they come. It's not slowing down one bit. CLG looking to move up those standings and try and get one of the high-rated buys for the playoffs here.
Weaver's Wall, again, used well by Huhi to try to secure these objectives. This is what that ultimate is so adept at accomplishing, but a 2-man rupture, a lot of damage coming out onto Darshan. The shield barely keeping him alive through that feast.
Apollo has actually knocked away a couple of people at different moments in this game that were very low health. Not quite getting to execute damage. Here comes Darshan right back with the teleport, though.
All right, Feast is down. Now the fight can start. A lot of spears down there into Hakuho as CLG breaks open inhibitor turret number 2, going for the inhibitor itself. Omargod, the only one hurt. CLG is mission accomplished status now. Getting themselves back, they can regroup bottom lane with the remaining 1 minute of their Baron and start pushing that last line of defense.
CLG get off the Baron empowered recalls in. Not going to take them too long. Yeah, there's Cloud Drake coming up, and you guess they can just pick that up on their way. But yeah, as you said, objective number 1, push straight down that bottom side. They've got double lines of super minions. And CLG looking to close the book here on this entire series. What a, big performance from them. And it definitely says something because people have a lot of questions. They're like, oh, no, Omargod, yeah, he looks decent, but how is he going to do when the pressure mounts and when they start to get the playoffs? Well, he's holding up just fine. Darshan barely holds up in this fight, by the way. Gets all the shields, needs all the shields. So I would say I'm not going to blame Apollo for, knocking that one away because you don't calculate in the heal plus the double shield there with the lock, with the activation as well. And it was still, even with all of those, very close to getting that execute. Definitely is a feel bad moment when you knock away someone like that, but that's the least of their problems at this point, because CLG are at the door knocking, and they want the inhibitor to answer.
Time for the miracle defense from EnVy, or the end of the game likely here. Omargod been having a great performance, as you mentioned so far. He's had some awesome engages, some flash body slams, good casks as well. Really stepping up now that he's the sole jungler on this team. CLG potentially under critique from some people saying, well, he's got to step up. This is the last couple of weeks. This is their playoff spot. Omargod's got to do or die, and he's doing right now. As the Weaver's Wall comes out, the binding lands onto Seraph. Very, very tanky, though. Apollo gets himself in some trouble there. The seismic shove almost able to put him in a spot that's too dangerous. Yep. CLG continues to push now. No more wall.
And time is in their favor. I mean, CLG, as we said, look at all the minions inside the base. Apollo has to deal with them. That's the Tristana. That's the main source of damage for EnVy. So it allows CLG to even face tank turret and get some more damage.
And you know, we were talking so much about LirA for this series, Kobe, and he's 0-4-1 in this second game. He just hasn't been able to find his mark and get himself back to where he wanted to be. He was part of the first blood that EnVy got so early with that rotation from the LeBlanc with the teleport. But after that, he's just been coming up with zeros.
And a lot of it is due to the CLG team play. This is a team, over and over, they state how much they want to focus on team play, team camaraderie, communication. All those things really coming together for them, and it really does add to how quick they end out the games and how quickly they go for these objectives. Another engagement from CLG here.
Trying to put multiple men there into the Cataclysm. Apollo knocked back, more damage from Stixxay, who does not know how to retreat, and why would you? They are so far ahead. Hakuho dies as the third man on EnVy to drop, make it 4, only Nisqy remaining, and he's not going to be there for long. It's a 2 for 5, an ace for CLG, and a 2 for 0 over Team EnVy.
And a 2-0 for Omargod's first series, starting the entire time. Some confidence for their new jungler and some confidence for the team moving towards the playoffs, trying to get that top spot, trying to get that playoff bye. CLG victory here.
CLG feeling good about that one. That means they put the pressure on TSM to say, okay, now you got to win your first game, and then you get to stay tied with us. We're the ones setting the bar. And CLG, you can see, they look pumped, they look happy, and why would they not? They've managed to work together as a team, put these games away very quickly. Second game taking 30 minutes, first one taking 26. They showed sheer dominance from start to finish and a lot of teamwork.
Definitely looking good there. Everything really on point. There were only a couple of instances in each game where things got a little bit hectic and you started to worry about who's going to come out in these frantic skirmishes, and there were some very low health moments. But in the end, it was their renewed focus on, after each of those skirmishes, instantly getting like 50% of a turret, then not overstaying for it and returning to these objectives. That's how they were able to really push the pace of this game and take the entire series, really.
And it was really fun to watch. Honestly, watching a team be able to work together like that and regroup after having something that seems like a mess. Because sometimes if a team gets themselves into a spot where you take a messy fight, everything devolves into messy fights. But CLG did a wonderful job of mentally resetting.
Mentally resetting in the game, mentally resetting in the season. It's not like teams go into it like, you know what, it's going to be no big deal. We'll replace one of our main players, in week 8. There's only 2 weeks left till playoffs, no problem. They obviously were having some internal issues. They were trying to work through them, started subbing, then moving to more full time here. And it doesn't answer questions. Those are still going to be floating around, especially because they still have playoffs to games to play, and the pressure's only going to get more intense for Omar from here. But things look good for him right now, and they look good for CLG actually rallying behind this roster move and finding success.
Yeah, Omar wasn't just somebody who was along for the ride. He did a lot of work for this team, always on the front line, always engaging, being a part of what you saw with the catches in the enemy jungle, and even in that first game being critical to making that level 1 play, coming around and then waiting for his body slam to come back up. He seems like he's ready to step up to that challenge, which is exciting for CLG, because if they can make this roster work, this is a team that wants to go far. This is a team that wants to participate in Worlds, and
this is a team that wants to be number one.
Number one.
And as the analyst that said, they aren't really looking for a guy to go legendary from the jungle, right? They want that tank player right now, especially, and that's what they're getting.
Well, for more on that 2-0 CLG win, let's check in with Digon and the veteran in the top lane.
Thank you very much. I'm joined by Darshan. And Darshan, great series here, but let's talk about the preparation that you guys had to put in after a tough loss against Immortals. You were able to get the job this week done against Envy.
Yeah, it was actually pretty hard, like considering we had to like shake up our roster and you know, have a new jungler towards the end of the split, which is something I haven't really had to deal with before. So I think Omar has done a pretty good job catching up and trying to fit in as fast as he can, but we still have a lot to work on, and I think we definitely played pretty well today, but it wasn't as clean as we'd like it to be for sure.
Specifically in this series, what did Omar do that allowed you guys to carry and take the win?
I think he's just really good at understanding what needs every laner has and making sure they're able to play, you know, with vision, they're able to play with confidence, and I think he did a really good job of that. Like playing with Huhi this set, I think he did really well.
So it's no secret that we live in the world of tanks. In this game, you pulled out 2 different carry-type champions. Why? You know, it seems like it would be easier to play the tanks.
There's always opportunities to play carries, especially when you have Omar on like a tank like Gragas. It's definitely like a great time to pick a carry, and so I was really comfortable playing Camille and Jarvan, and they're really strong in the meta, so why not?
It's a given that you guys are going to be playing in the playoffs, but how do you want CLG to be looking? What is the form that you want CLG to be in as you move into those last final games?
Yeah, so when we like had the switch and we had to go with Omar instead of Dardoch, we have 4 weeks to essentially train up Omar and kind of become a team again. And I think the first week was a little rough. We didn't have the most ideal practice, but I think we have 3 more weeks left, and we're going to make the most of it to dominate playoffs. Like, we don't want to be a team that kind of like goes on and barely wins every set. Like, we want to be able to crush NA, and we haven't really shown that we can do that against every team, like the top teams and the bottom teams. So we definitely have a lot to work on, but when everything finally gels well together, I'll be really happy, and I'm pretty excited for playoffs.
Well, you guys definitely took a great step today with your victory over Envy. Congratulations on today's game. For more on that, let's send it over to James and Mark.
Thank you very much, Degon. CLG getting the 2-0 over Envy this time around. Darshan saying that, you know, they don't expect things to be perfect right away, and they're, you know, looking to make a lot of improvements in these coming weeks. But from where I'm standing, feels like they didn't really miss a beat subbing Omar into that starting roster.
Yeah, I mean, he was saying that they weren't as clean as they wanted, but at some point you kind of have to tip your cap to Envy a little bit. They had like a 4-man roam down the bot lane early this game. I mean, if a team's willing to make that kind of play,
you got to respond.
Yeah,
right?
Something's going to happen. You're not just going to be like, oh, nothing is super clean. So
right.
On the one hand, I see what he's saying. You know, there's always room to improve, but for like you know, this is the first time as a starter. Pretty clean series overall, 2-0.
I was impressed, absolutely. Let's take a look at Champions League, because we also heard the conversation there around carries, right? We've talked all about the tanks in 7-14. Oh, the Cho'Gaths, the Zacs, and the Maokais. Well, guess what? It's not like you can't be playing things Camille and Jarvan in this day and age.
I think that's the big thing, is as much as we all are like, did you see that Cho'Gath this game? He was like 5-1 and was like 4K HP.
Right, and then lost the game.
Right, I think if you can execute on the comps for the most part, I mean, people talk about how diverse 7-13 was as a meta. Everyone loved it. And while I would agree, 7-14 definitely ended up a little bit more unstable with some champions and items at the start of it being very strong. I think it did just add more champions to the pool of viable ones. It didn't really necessarily knock out things like the Jarvan or a Kled or a Rumble. You still see those being picked a fair amount. It's just now there's a Cho'Gath and a Maokai and other things as well.
Right, of course, another, you know, position that's contentious is that ADC position. Typically, Caitlyn banned out, but Tristana and Kalista being the next two that people jump at. Of course, Stixxay very happy in this meta. He's known for his Kalistas, his Tristanas, and his Lucians, for example, picking up that in the first rotation this time around. He and Aphromoo performing this time around.
And they were really the highlight for CLG this game. They got the attention early on in the bot lane, but after that, they were able to start making plays on their own. Stixxay had some really nice engages onto Hakuho, was able to punish that Braum pick pretty heavily early on. You see just right away, knocking the shield up, getting the chain CC down, and Morgana as a counter pick to Braum is very strong. They did it in the first game, they do it again here, and just very good performance.
You know, we say the bot lane, but we also, again, in those first 2 clips, you saw Omargod right there alongside them. So the trio working very well together. I love to see Aphromoo enabled to make plays, and it kind of ties into exactly what we were talking about earlier in the day, that Omar doesn't necessarily have to be the initiator himself, But if he latches onto the veteran shot caller and Aphromoo and is in the right place at the right time, if they layer their CC, there's almost no stopping them.
And that's the other thing, too, is that he's not just the primary initiator. It's not, okay, Omar, we're going to play 4 carries, and you're going to run in there and be the engaged.
It's all on you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, you have a Jarvan, you have a Kalista, you have a Morgana, you have a lot of other tools that he can kind of follow up on.
Right.
We saw a lot of attention around the mid lane as well. There were dives going on there, and he was often comboing together with Darshan to make those plays, not just himself.
And again, the reason why at the beginning of the segment I said it doesn't feel like CLG has missed a beat is because of plays like this. 23 minutes into the game, they get a single pick on a Nisqy. That's enough to call this Baron. Beautiful walls from Huhi in this game to secure objectives. Let's watch this one play out.
Once again, Omargod kind of comboing together to cut off the escape path out of Nisqy. They get that first kill. Stixxay was pretty big at this point in the game off all those bot plays. And then you have a Kalista, you killed the enemy mid laner, you're relatively free to go kind of force down this Baron. They go to make sure they get some vision control, they push out one more wave, boom, boom, boom. They start forcing this down.
I actually kind of like the fact that they dropped Rift Herald there, if only to stall Envy a little bit longer in terms of having to clear that out to regain that mid lane control.
Yeah, exactly. So if CLG understands the steps, we criticized some teams for missing them. Being able to force that mid lane was important. Huhi also gets a great wall off. LirA can't get in range in time, but Envy was still walking forward, so they get the punish afterwards, able to kind of dumpster down onto LirA. Seraph is going to get a straight kill onto Aphromoo, who kind of got thrown next to a big Cho'Gath, but end of the day, they pick up a couple more kills with that Baron, and they're able to basically close this game out pretty cleanly after that.
Again, that came at 23 minutes. It's very atypical to see a team be able to take a Baron that early on into the game in the face of 4 enemy, champions, right? If you could sneak it, great. But Envy was fully aware that that was happening and still could do nothing about it. Again, to me, it speaks to the fact that CLG is a top-tier team here in the NA LCS.
Just exactly like we were saying in Game 1. You see them get a pick, and they can get objectives off of it. They're not a team that sits around and stalls out and wonders, oh, well, what can we get with this? They instantly try and force advantages with it. Game 1, they were grabbing turrets off single picks. Here, they grab the Baron, and after that, it's basically game over. They had like a little bit of unclean play around the top side. You could probably hear that's what Darshan was hinting at.
Yep.
There was a big triple knockup out of the Cho'Gath that maybe could have made that turret push dangerous, but they got out fine, and they were able to close the series out.
We talk a lot about the bot lane and Omargod this, throughout this series, but we do want to give a nod to Huhi here, who will pick up player of the game for his control on Taliyah, right? The more and more we see this champion used properly, the more I am impressed with top-tier teams and their ability to take advantages without having to get kills or off of just a single kill.
It's one of those abilities that, like, the better you get with it, the more amazing it becomes. You see Game 1, able to take a turret for free, no one dead. Here, off a single pick, like, yes, you get mid lane control, but that's usually not enough to just force a Baron.
It's kind of reminiscent of some of, like, the pristine Ryze ultimates that we had seen back when he is in the meta, right? To end the game or to flank on people. When players get a mastery of a champion like that to that high a level, it's just spectacular to watch.
And Huhi in particular, being a playmaker, someone who has been criticized in the past for being too aggressive. I mean, even his Taliyah points, he's had some walls where he shoots down to the bot lane, ends up under the turret, flayed right in and dies. I remember a couple specific plays like that, but he's someone who doesn't give up, always keeps trying, always keeps learning, and he's not afraid to make a mistake while trying to make the correct play.
Right, this pushes CLG to 11-4, so getting those wins as they need because they're neck and neck with TSM when it comes to, playing for that second first-round bye behind Immortals. On the flip side, Envy, we talked about this impossible schedule that they have, right, going into these last 2 weeks. All right, you've suffered your first loss while C9 on the other side is going to have a much easier time. So it's about how is Envy going to deal with these losses in terms of keeping their mentality and their heads on straight.
The scary thing is that a lot of this is off the back of LirA not playing that well early on to the season. He didn't have a great season overall compared to his first one, but especially now in the later portion with the meta kind of changing in the jungle, he does feel like he's struggling to find his footing with it. Elise is an early game champion that still feels like it should be fine, but he did not have good performances today.
Right.
We've seen the Graves, not super impressive. Do we want him on a Cho'Gath? That's not really the LirA style. It feels like they're floundering a little bit.
I'm starting to be less and less impressed by Cho'Gath, right? We had a whole lot of hubbub around how impactful he could be, how dangerous he could be, and that's not to say we haven't seen carry performances or glimpses, of the OP-ness of the Cho'Gath, but I'm looking at Maokai, I'm looking at Zach, I'm still looking at so much of the others, even the Shens. At this point, teams are still finding ways to use a nerfed Shen in a more effective manner than a Cho'Gath.
Yeah, and I think it's just, I have a hard time faulting the Cho'Gath this game. He's 5-1, and your mid laner gets picked off, and Cho'Gath's like, well, what do I do at this point? I'm trying to run through a Taliyah wall. I'm not just going to flash it randomly, and that is.
But that's kind of what I mean.
Yes.
Because he doesn't have options, right? He's so reliant on his team giving him the opportunity to get onto a carry of the opposing team.
I mean, if you're comparing it to a Flash Maokai W, then like, yeah, that's instant CC and it's huge. And then the zoning tool from his ultimate, I mean, you have a lot of powerful things with it. And to that point, I would agree. But Cho'Gath also doesn't have as many weaknesses that you might be able to point out, where like he can farm jungle just fine. He can take range matchups and not get bullied very hard at all. You see him often farming equally in the top side. So if you're looking for a blind, safe pick tank, he might be the best option right now. And I do agree that like some of his, oh my god, that's ridiculous moments are not quite as strong as a Maokai.
Right.
But I do feel like he doesn't have almost any weaknesses at the same time.
Fair points. There we have it. We've got more league action coming your way. Team Liquid hit the Rift next as they go up against Cloud9. Don't touch that browser. Saying a lot of that.